Get ready to strap in for another exciting episode of No Driving Gloves, where Derek, John, and Will use over 75 years combined industry knowledge to bring you a bare-knuckled view of the collector car hobby. So let's get rolling. Welcome, everybody. It's time again for another episode of No Driving Gloves. And unbelievably, for the first time in weeks, it's all three of us. We've got the whole crew together. Derek's here, Will's here, and unfortunately, John's here. Let's go ahead and see what Derek's been up to, and then we'll check in with John. Isn't this neat talking in the third person? Is that third person? I don't know. And then we'll go ahead, because I think Will's got a big, long list of things to tell us what's going on and what's happening, and he might even have some special announcements, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out when we get to Will, see if he remembers how to podcast. Derek, you got anything going on or anything happening?
Oh, wow. A little bit here, a little bit there. Derek's been busy. We're talking in third person tonight, so just going to keep doing that. No, Derek has been working and working and working. I did lead one of our museum in motion tours last week. Well, 2 weeks ago. Sorry, 2 weeks ago in Michigan. Gave a small group of our members from the Corvette Museum some cool behind the scenes tours at Henry Ford Museum, some of the Roush facilities, Lingenfelter's private collection, places like that. So had a good trip, was away from the office for a while, and fortunately took all my podcasting stuff with us. So last week's episode, I was actually able to record well in the midst of the tour. Came back and basically have been playing catch up at work for missing a week. So I've been busy, basically buried in emails and not getting to do anything fun like play with any cars or anything like that. So basically just your same old over here. What about you, John?
Well, John's been doing much of the same thing. I'm going to have an interesting picture on the social media here in the near future. I was looking at my tasks at work, and I'm going, I don't know if I can get more diverse than what I'm doing right now, as I have two Model Ts, roughly mid-20s. You know, they're Model Ts, so there's a lot there, but they're supposedly 26s and 27s. And then a 55 Lotus that I'm working on, and a 1991 Lotus that I'm working on. And I'm going, this is a kind of diverse range of automobiles, from dead base Model T with no improvements to one that's got a little souped up, Holly carb on it and the overhead valve conversion and some things like that, to a complete rebody almost of a race car, to finally finishing up that 91 Lotus X180R Esprit race car that Paul Newman used to run. So I've just been busy trying to bounce decade to decade in my head. It's, you work on a T, and then all of a sudden you got to go over and work on fuel injection. You go, things get a little bit confusing. That's kind of where I've been at, that, and doing a lot of behind the scenes things for the podcast. Going to add a new mixer in here in a couple weeks, and working on the news show. Hopefully people are enjoying the No Driving Gloves news episodes. And of course, the social media has been a lot more active. And give us a like, tell your friends about us, and let's see what happens. You can find us anywhere: No Driving Gloves, Instagram and Facebook, or nodrivinggloves@gmail.com. So with those plugs about us, let's give a big round of applause and welcome our stranger host. He's finally joining us again from the world of Gadsden, or Hokes Bluff, Alabama. So here's Will. And a round of applause for Will. He's back.
Yay! I'll take booze all day long. I don't care. Oh no, man! The last month has been kind of a whirlwind here at Big O Garage. Got a phone call from a friend of mine named David Coker that owns Rocket Racing Wheels, and he's developed a new wheel called the Attack, and it's a kind of a pro touring type wheel. And he asked me if we actually talked about this at SEMA about building him an autocross car to showcase his new wheels. And of course, I told him, I'm like, David, man, we ain't got time to pay attention right now, So he was a little bummed out, and well, he called me uh, 6 weeks before Columbus Good Guy Show and asked me if we could sneak it in, and I made a couple of phone calls and got a couple of my current customers to willing to wait, a month for us to build this car. So we had 6 weeks to build it and have it ready for the Columbus Good Guys Nationals. And anyway, we wound up finishing it in 4.5 weeks and took it to Des Moines Good Guys show the week before Columbus and was able to shake it down and test it and really get it ready for Columbus. So car performed well in Des Moines. Of course, we tweaked and tuned and adjusted, and had a few little minor problems. Had an alternator issue and just very minor stuff, nothing major. And he wound up finishing 22nd overall. I think there was like 80 entries. So, we were pleased with that first time out. Cars all steel, running 275s all the way around. Most of your pro guys are at least 315s all the way around. So, like I said, pleased with that. Didn't make the top 16 shootout, but that was fine. So in Columbus, we felt we had the car dialed in pretty good at the end of the race in Des Moines because we just kept getting faster and faster and faster and faster. When we get to Columbus, which is Good Guys' biggest event, and freaking Darren goes out there and makes the top 16, makes the shootout, and winds up finishing eighth overall. Now, we're not talking amateur guys out here running autocross cars. These pro guys, I mean, we're talking the Unzer family is running Good Guys autocross now. So, um, and then there was I can't remember the guy who drives for Detroit Speed. Anyway, he used to be a NASCAR driver. So I mean, there are ex pro drivers in this class that he was in, and wound up finishing eighth overall. And everybody pretty much above him, I think, other than one car, was sponsored by either Ride Tech or Detroit Speed or Summit Racing or somebody like that. And it felt really good being that we'd never built an autocross car before, going out there and competing the way that car did on its second time out. So uh, hopefully it wasn't beginner's luck. I'm sure there was a little bit of that involved, but we were extremely happy with the results. And David that owns Coker or Coke David Coker that owns Rocket Racing Wheels was very very happy. So at the end of the day, that's what matters. David was tickled to death, and we were happy with the results, and it really opened a lot of eyes to his new wheels that he's come out with. So and one of the cool things about his wheels are they're a one piece wheel, but they're still forged. So you get the strength of your three-piece wheels with the cost of a one-piece wheel. So, and I think comparing it to your higher end three-piece forged wheels, they're 2 pounds heavier, and the strength is actually the same. Yeah, it's 2 pounds heavier, but they're $1,000 a piece less. So, and they're on the shelf ready to go. He's got a lot of different backspacings there. So, um, you call and you order them, and then 2 or 3 days you got them ready to put on your car. So that's really pretty neat about those wheels. So.
That doesn't sound too bad there. I'm going to butt in a little bit and just say, for the listeners that don't know, autocrossing is a single car event that you're on kind of on an obstacle course or a maze. You race between these cones, so you don't have to worry about hitting anybody. We go into it in depth. I think maybe it was around episode 12 or no, it was episode 19, I think. Jordan, a girl who does it all, she's a national championship autocrosser, and she kind of explains autocrossing in very scientific detail if anybody needs to really learn what autocrossing is. And I was kind of going to ask the questions: where do these wheels come in price wise and weight wise? And Will's got all of that figured out. So now Mr. Coker is happy. Where's the car at now, Will? Are you guys still playing with it, or does he have it to autocross at his leisure?
Oh well, it came back to the shop after Columbus. Believe it or not, there's not even a rear sway bar on this car, and I know that's kind of hard to believe, and it's out there competing with those guys. So it came back to put a rear sway bar on, a fiberglass hood. It has a serpentine system on it that's just absolute junk. So we had to do some shimming and stuff on it to keep the belt from squealing. Rewired some of the stuff in the GM harness that came with the LS3. So just a few little things to make it a little more user friendly. Unfortunately, we have another build in process that we're under extremely time crunch, so we only got to work on it a couple of days. We didn't get to get everything done we wanted to get done, but they actually picked it up last night. They're on their way to St. Paul, Minnesota for the what's it called, Street Machine Nationals or something like that. So that's where they'll be racing this weekend. It may come back to me next week if we have time to work on it. David's real cool to work with. He's like, hey, if you got time, bring it in. I'll bring it in. If not, we'll work on it later. So I know the car will be in Louisville at the Street Rod Nationals. I can't remember where all they're taking it, but they've got somewhere they're going with it about every other weekend. We will personally actually have the car with us at the Good Guys event in Texas, and I believe it's in October, 1st of October. It's getting rode hard and put up wet. It was built to beat on, and that's what they're doing with it.
It's kind of amazing you can put that together in non-reality TV, real world. 6 weeks, probably 4 weeks. Once you have a game plan, you get your parts ordered. They don't all show up necessarily the next day. I know some could.
Yeah.
So
That honestly, John, that was our biggest battle was parts. We were next day airing stuff in. The UPS, I guess, was going through a contract negotiation or something, and man, every next day air package that we had wouldn't show up next day. And man, it was really, really frustrating. And honestly, that was our biggest holdup. And we still built the car in 4.5 weeks. And that was rebuilding the rear end, tweaking on the rear suspension a little bit. It already had a Detroit Speed Quadrolink in the rear, new subframe in the front, different motor, different transmission. Went from an automatic to a straight shift, so had to add pedals. Took out all the old pedals, put in some tilting racing pedals, a racing steering column, plumbing all new brake lines. I mean, pretty much a full build without paint in 4.5 weeks. New gauges. I mean, it was it was a lot of work done in 4.5 weeks, and then for it to go out and perform the way it did, I was very, very happy.
So we have a successful Camaro out there from Big Oak in basically a month. You said you got another project that had to be put on a back burner, and now you're playing catch up on it.
Well, it wasn't necessarily put on the back burner. I still had guys working on it. Two guys pretty much built that Camaro in 4.5 weeks. Now they put in a lot of hours. Um, Gavin and myself helped them the last, say, week, and then pretty much everybody else in the shop was working on a '42 Chevrolet pickup. That's been in the shop for a couple of years. It's a really high end, super nice truck. It's actually at the interior shop now. We should be getting it back soon, and it will be making its debut in Louisville at the Street Rod Nationals in the Exalta paint booth. So um, at 11:30 on Thursday, we're actually going to do a big unveiling. Car will be covered. Should be a lot of media and stuff there. And we'll talk about the truck a little bit, and we'll pull the cover off, and hopefully people kind of like it and create a little bit of buzz for Exalta and create a little bit of buzz for us and hopefully create a little bit of buzz for the NSRA Street Rod Nationals. It's unfortunately kind of the Nationals hadn't really went downhill, but a lot of their other shows have really just uh, crashed and burned would be a little harsh, but have really they're past their heyday, and they keep going downhill. So to see an organization like that kind of start going downhill, it kind of sucks. So um, maybe it'll bring a little bit of light to what they've got going on.
I'm going to say, and tell me if I need to edit this out, Will, but I believe when I was visiting you for your open house, that Chevy mid build appeared in I think the video from Big Oak Garage, which is still on our Facebook page. If I'm not allowed to plug that.
No, 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 that's fine. I mean, a lot of people know that we've been building the truck, so it's not like a Detroit secret car or nothing like that. So there's a few pictures of it floating around. We've kept it pretty quiet. If you dig around a little bit, you'll find some pictures of it, and if you'll stay tuned to you know No Driving Gloves social media and Big Oak Garage social media, you'll um, a day or two after this airs, you'll start seeing a little bit of a few of the build pictures floating around a little bit, and try to create a little bit of a buzz before the debut. So
Yeah, since I'm really good about that plugging things, give Big Oak Garage a following on both the Facebook, Instagram. I don't. You're not a Twitterer, are you?
I do have a Twitter. Basically, I just share stuff off my Instagram to my Twitter, so I don't really do a whole lot of tweeting.
Well, as long as it's there, the Twitterers are out there. I know everybody is their social media or has their social media love and hate, and just try to get you a couple more followers, maybe. And appreciate you making the announcement on where to see the truck on No Driving Gloves. Hopefully, that's the beginning of breaking news that can start happening every now and then.
Yeah, that's the first time it's been announced publicly is on No Driving Gloves, and I'll y'all know first. So I think I'll start my social media push for it a couple of days after the show airs. So if you just stay tuned and start seeing a few build photos here and there, and now I won't be posting any of the color or anything like that. So um, you'll have to uh, you'll have to either come to Louisville or I think I know Street Rodder Magazine Road Tour, their Facebook page, they'll be doing a live Facebook Live deal on it. There'll probably be a couple of Facebook Lives streams out there of the unveiling of it. So uh, hopefully,
We'll keep our eyes out and try to share those too. So,
so I got to step away 1 second.
well, I guess that leaves me. And are you still out there, Derek? I know all three of us, to be honest, this evening are having internet challenges. Not so much Will, but both on Derek and I's side. It's a little wonderful thing.
I was actually just taking a nap. Did Will announce anything cool?
No, actually, I'm going to give him credit because I've seen that truck in the build, and it's a spectacular vehicle. And it's dropped and it's tucked, and it it's a really good looking truck. I've only seen it in bare metal in person. Um, I haven't seen, any of the finished stuff or as it's approaching finishing because it's still, as we're recording, it's still in upholstery. And that's one of the things I've had to do cars on a timeline, but not like Will's been turning them out the last couple of weeks.
Oh yeah, he's been doing a fantastic job, and we'll give him the pass for missing the podcasts there a couple times, but no, I got a chance to see the truck, still in bare metal when I was down there to pick up the paint booth that folks had heard about on the podcast, and I think they saw the More Mondays video posted to our social media on No Driving Gloves. Yeah, a fantastic truck. Of course, we all know Will and Big Oak Garage do some fantastic work. So, yeah, it's good to hear that that truck's going to be actually unveiled to the public here pretty soon, because I think it'll be one that people are going to like to see.
Yeah, I'm kind of well, what you just said. You saw it in bare metal. I saw it in bare metal. You were just there 4 or 5 weeks ago to get that paint booth. So it must be like one of the first vehicles he's painted. And I wish I could plug his paint booth, people. I don't know if we're supposed to. This seems to be let's plug stuff for Will, and hopefully, but
Don't
yeah.
worry, he's not here to
So
hear it. So
is
it's
I'm
the
back.
okay.
okay? Yeah, no, we'll forget that, and let's just pretend we were talking nice about him. And Derek was saying, just like I had said, that he'd seen the truck in bare metal a few weeks ago when he was picking up your old paint booth. You so kindly provided to the Corvette Museum, and I kind of
Yeah.
provided. So
Hmm.
is this
Yeah.
pickup that's
Kind
debuting
of.
the first one painted in your new paint booth?
Actually, it is. It is the first vehicle painted in the new paint booth, and man, I could not be happier. I'll put it this way: we wouldn't make Louisville if it wouldn't have been for this new paint booth.
The size or the features or
Oh, the features. The size is really not much different. Um, there's a maybe 10 square feet, 15 square feet bigger. But the biggest thing is being able to bake the paint. So you can essentially walk out on your last coat, hit the cure, and in 45 minutes to an hour, you can take everything out of the booth and load it again. If we wouldn't have been able to do that, there ain't no way that we would have made it. Which I mean, we hadn't made it yet. I mean, we still got a long way to go. But I see light at the end of the
well,
tunnel.
it's one of those things we sit and we talk, and even at the museum, and I'm sure Derek's under these challenges, and I'm sure many of our listeners are. You try to justify, you had a paint booth, and don't get me wrong, you had a nice paint booth, because even our museum kind of bantered about maybe we should buy that off of you, and of course Derek scooped in and grabbed it.
Bam, got there first.
So yeah, so you didn't need a new paint booth, but just the couple of dollars extra, it's worth it in the end. Sometimes it's one or two features, and it's like podcasting equipment, or my woodworking hobby is, sometimes you just need that. You need to spend $200 or $300 just to get that little bit of extra thing that the lesser tool doesn't have, and it just makes the world so much easier. And once you get to your level of street rod or hot rods, you're gonna beat me up one day when you see me, but your level of hot rod, it does come down to, and the old saying, you can't blame your tools. Well, sometimes the tools, you can do a good job with a bad tool, but it's a lot easier and a lot faster to do a good job with a good tool. So that
I blame my tool a lot.
Yeah.
that sounds That sounds. We know you like Snap-on stuff, so we'll jump off that topic really quickly.
Well, I'll tell you how we factored in buying a new paint booth. Was we'd added on to the shop and we were going to move the paint booth, and so we factored in how long it was going to take it down and set it back up versus buying a new one, which is what we really needed to add heat. And another big thing that this booth does, it sucks in outside air, where the old shop it sucks in the air, that's in the shop. Well, we have a climate controlled shop, so when the paint booth is running, man, it gets really, really hot and the air conditions just struggle to keep up. So, we had added expense there, and then the heating element, being able to speed the process up, was huge. So, now we don't have to wait 4 days, 3 days with it sitting out in the sun before we can start cutting and buffing. We can start wet sanding and buffing the next day and be in there painting more stuff. So it was really kind of a no brainer when we really put the pen to paper and started really calculating what it was going to cost to move that one versus buying a new one and getting all the extra benefits.
That's a nice explanation on how some of those calculations go, because again, we've pointed out a couple of reasons for going and doing what you had done. And I mean, those factors come into play a lot of times in buying minor or major tools for any shop. So just you got to look at the whole picture, and no matter if anybody tells you, "Hey, you're nuts for doing that," and
The paint booth that we got was not the cream of the crop. I mean, it's a really nice paint booth, but it's not, like one you'd see like in a production shop, production collision shop or something like that they're painting, 10, 15 cars a day. Fortunate for us, we paint, two or three cars a year. So, we didn't have to get the super deluxe model. We actually got one of Unicure's more base models, and then made a few upgrades from it. Added a few lights, and then added the heating element and whatnot, and it works perfect for us because chances are that paint booth there will probably keep forever. I mean, it's just it does everything we need to do, and spray booth mask on it and put stuff down on the floors so the floors stay nice, and as long as you take care of it, it'll last a long, long, long time. So the heating element will probably burn up before the paint booth starts messing up. So Derek, y'all got the that one put up yet?
No, no, we don't. It's stored right now, and of course, we're waiting. I think I'm not sure if we've really mentioned it on the show or not, but I might have brought it up. The museum, we're building a new collection storage building, and it's going to be, we're going to wall off a section of that building, and that'll house the paint booth and kind of a small work area for any paint work we need to do. We can also do some of our preservation work. A lot of times you might need a paint booth to remove fumes, things like that, if we're using chemicals. We're kind of holding it in storage right now, and hopefully the new building construction will start, kind of hoping for before the end of this month, and we'll be able to get that up. I was going to say we're hoping to have it up by really hopefully well before the end of the year, but if it depending on how the building construction goes, but I'm really planning on it being up and running by the end of the year.
Cool. Well, I'll tell you, man, you and the two guys that you brought with you, man, y'all are hustlers, that's for sure. I mean, took that entire paint booth down in a day. I know we were whipped puppy dogs when we got done, but that was a lot of work to do in a day, and y'all said y'all was gonna come do it in a day, and by God, that's what happened.
We don't mess around. What can I say?
I'm not
But no, I
familiar with
mean,
that.
but I mean, I think that's part of and something that as I was listening to Will talk, Will, you probably get these a lot more than John or I have to deal with them, but you get these unveilings and tight deadlines, and really it's at least in the professional end of this world, the automotive world, a lot of times we back ourselves up against the wall in that, whether it's in a shop like Will's, or even in the museum world, we wind up, especially with historic vehicles, a lot of times having a deadline. It's got to make it to a certain Concours d'Elegance, or in the case of like the Jim Clark Lotus, it had to make the Goodwood Hill climb, and you got that deadline. And maybe your hobby cars at home, I don't have a deadline on those typically, although my deadline is always, I wish it was done yesterday, because I'd rather be out driving it around. But it's just kind of one of the things we do face in this world, in this business, and everybody has it at work. They have the deadlines, but it's a fun struggle, at least in our world, because when it's finally come to an end, there's the joy of seeing that work, and seeing it do an autocross and perform within the top 8 of its group, and have in mine and John's case, a lot of times, a couple episodes we talked about the good fortune of meeting some really legendary people, getting these cars done and ready to go. Sometimes you get to witness them being driven by the person who drove them back 50 years ago or 40 years ago, or someone who was around at the time drive that car again. And it really brings more meaning to it once you get that deadline done and you see the vehicle actually perform in some way, whether it's on a show field or on a track or whatever it is. Um, yeah, I just, kind of thinking about things we've been talking about recently that kind of tied it all together for me when I heard Will talking about a deadline and then watching it, autocross and actually be successful. So, just kind of something interesting that popped in my head tonight while you were talking, Will.
Yeah, honestly, most of the time, most of us shop owners are our own worst enemies. We kind of create that. There are some customers out there that are like, yeah, I've got a spot for this car at SEMA, and it's got to be there no matter what. But most of the time, it's the shop that you know creates the tight deadline. And but like you said, there's a lot of enjoyment in those crunch times if you have a good crew. And man, when we're working late, we're having a good time. I've got a great crew that I'm lucky to have, that enjoy being here after hours, and working till you're dead tired and getting up and doing it again. So there is some enjoyment in that process. Yeah, it's for the shop owner, and even the guys working in the shop. The stress level goes up, but it you can't really feel it in a shop that really clicks and connects, and has a good crew that works together. John, when was your last tight deadline on something?
Probably college. Yeah.
Yeah, the only deadline to college was be there, clocked in, ready to go before 8
Exactly.
o'clock.
That was the last time you actually
I was
had
gonna
to do something.
I was gonna say, is that true? Because my lab partner I had a lot of that time, and he is never there before 8 o'clock.
Who was that?
You don't like talking about him, I believe, but
Oh,
I remember getting the Cunningham ready for Amelia Island, and we weren't panicking, but it did have to come back afterwards and get a few touch ups. And right now, to be honest, the X180R I talked to him about at the beginning of this episode, why it's not a drop dead deadline. It's really supposed to be done within the next 30 days, and we're following that up with the 55 Lotus Mark 10. It needs to be done by January 1st because one of our staff has it committed somewhere. And we just got a Lotus 11 in 2 weeks ago that's also committed to be done by January 1st. And this car just arrived, and we knocked it apart in a week, and body and frame have went off to a panel beater in the Northeast for him to get the body ready, and we're going to start taking care of some of the mechanicals and that. And so we've got, why normally I don't have deadlines. There's a couple kind of pretty hard deadlines coming up. I'm pretty confident we'll achieve them if the projects are properly managed and stay on track. Unfortunately, we're not used to that in the world I live in, and things can slightly go astray. And that Lotus 11 that's in the Northeast, there's already been a issue with the shipping, and why nothing happened to it. It delayed everything a week. So it's always little things, and you've got to take those into account. But nothing in this industry goes clockwork. There's always a little bit of drama. It's not as bad as Paul Jr. and Paul Sr., but there gets to be some stressful times there, and the rewards usually are well worth it, whether or not it's placing in that top 8 or getting that grade 8 award, or meeting the right person on the right day, and learning more about the history or the world. We're having some more internet difficulties. I've already dropped Will and Derek, and I don't know if we're going to get them back. So I'm just going to wrap it up there. Hopefully we'll overcome these technical difficulties. I could name my internet provider, but I don't want to do that. But with that, we'll just go ahead and close out, and all three of us will see you guys next week.